Okay. In Tibetan, the word for karma is le, L-E. And really literally it means action. But it has come to mean actions and their results. Karma itself is deeply hidden. What is it, Ami? Shintukokyu?
Shintukokyu.
Unless you, as Ryan said, unless you, say it again, unless you know.
Unless you are me or someone like me.
Unless you are me or someone like me, you cannot judge. Yes? And that would be if I was the Buddha. I'm speaking as the Buddha. It was very difficult to really understand how karma works. One teacher said, if in fact karma was immediate, got the immediate result, then if you stepped on a cockroach and you broke your back, you'd never be stepping on cockroaches. But it doesn't really work that way. It's like we do an action and it plants a seed that will then ripen in the future. One of the first qualities of karma is that it's definite. That means that if you have an acorn, and you plant it, what you're going to get, if the conditions are right, is an oak tree. You won't get an apple tree or a peach tree. So it's, bless you, it's definite. It increases. That's the second quality. It increases. That means that if you do an action and you don't do anything to purify it, or you just leave it alone if it's good action, good actions increase too. And you can increase them bigger by rejoicing in them, by recognizing them and rejoicing in them. Bad actions also increase, so they get bigger. So the consequences of doing a small bad action turns quite huge over time, which is why applying what's called the four opponent powers, which we'll talk about briefly, to purify. There are practices that we do to purify. Who does the purifying?
We do.
Exactly. We're purifying our own mind. It's not like, it would be great if it was possible for enlightened beings to purify us, because we would be purified. They just come by with their little, salagadoo,
Not a mouse, not a mouse.
like that. Yeah. So we have to do it ourselves. And it's very interesting if you think about it deeply, what it means to purify your actions. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. Just go over these four qualities. If you don't create the cause, you won't experience the result. If you didn't create the cause to be wealthy, it doesn't matter how many jobs you hold down. It doesn't matter whether you get an inheritance, whether you get a big chunk of money, something big will happen. Your car will break down, or your house will burn down, or you'll have to put that money somewhere else. It falls through your hands. You can't keep it. So they say that it's the practice of generosity that creates wealth. If you don't create the cause, you won't experience the result. If you don't lie, you won't experience the result of people not believing you. You have to create the cause to experience the result. If you do create the cause, you will experience the result. So those are the four laws of karma. It's definite, it increases. If you don't create the cause, you won't experience the result. And if you do create the cause, you will experience the result, unless there's an intervention, which is the four opponent powers. or some kind of purification process using those 4 opponent powers. And the quality of the karmic result is also dependent upon your intention. Was it an accident or was it on purpose? There's a big difference between stepping on, we kill all the time, just by walking, by breathing, by eating. Even if you're a vegetarian, your bowl of rice, a lot of beings died for your bowl of rice. It happens that way. So we can be aware of that, and we have no intention of killing. And we think also any beings who've been harmed by my actions, may they be purified themselves, may they be born in a pure realm, and may they find the Dharma. May they have a precious human life. And what is that doing? It's changing our own mind. That's what we're doing. We're imbuing our own mind with these positive qualities. The act itself, how the act is carried out. If it's done with compassion, if you had to kill, the difference between an injection like euthanasia for a dog or taking a club and beating it to death, I look at your faces and it's like you wouldn't even consider such a thing. How hideous. So the act itself of how you carry that out is also a factor in the karmic result of an action. The object, the higher the object, the bigger the karmic result. In other words, killing an ant is different than killing your mother or your father or a Buddha. The more someone has helped you, the heavier the karma of harming them. So it's the intention, the act, the object, and the frequency is also a factor in the karmic result. If you do it just once, it's not as heavy as if it's something that has become a habit and you keep doing it, then the result is heavier. You can think about that. Think about why that is. When you do something one time and you recognize it as a non-virtue, first you've got to know what the non-virtues are, what's to be avoided and what's to be embraced. And once you know what's to be avoided, this is like a sword with a double-edged sword. If you don't know, you can plead ignorance, right? Once you know, then you really have to follow it. But to think about why it would be true that they even speak about the object or the act, how you did it, how frequently you did it. Think about what that does to your own mind when you're engaging in a negative act. What is that doing to your mind? It's creating a propensity to do that again, because that's what happens. You are creating the cause to be born in a place where you will relive the kinds of karmas that you have created. For instance, if you do a lot of killing, you'll find yourself born in a place, first of all, that doesn't support life very well. You're in a place where crops don't grow, medicines don't work. But also, you'll have to kill to live. You'll be born in a fishing village where that's how you have to live. There's one teacher, if you ever get a chance to see Venerable Robina teach, she's really a great teacher, but she tells a story about how when she was young, she went fishing. She thought it would be cool to go fishing, but she never caught a fish. She didn't have the karma to kill. I think that's interesting.
Is that doing something like that, lying or something, and then every time you think about it, creating a real neural pathway that as it manifests in your brain as a propensity to do it again? So they say that when you do yoga, if you can't do the pose, just think about it and you'll receive from it. So would it be the same kind of thing?
I think what happens is when you do something, it may be difficult to do the first time, this negative action. It may be kind of difficult to do. But you do it and you think, oh, okay, well, I did that. It wasn't that bad. And then you do it again. And it becomes easier and easier. So like you say, the neural pathways. But we're talking about lifetimes, not just this brain in this life. So it's a subtle seed that gets planted on the mental continuum.
Thank you.
That will then ripen when the condition is in front of us. They say causes and conditions. So the cause is previous karma. And the condition is, I created the cause to have this cup of sweet tea. So then, and all the conditions that came together to make that happen. What happens then when you do these negative actions? We have to really think about it, not just take it as, okay, this is the way it is, but really think about why it works. Because when you think about why it works, why karma works the way it does, then you can see why it is that you can purify it. Because your mind is by nature clear and knowing. That's clear and knowing. And all of the negative seeds that you've planted on it are adventitious. They're not part. They're not. Your mind is clear. It's knowing. And by knowing that it is empty of any of these inherent qualities, then you can purify those. You can stop the habit of doing it. It's like when you smoke, when you've been a smoker. I was a smoker too for a number of years. And it was I quit many times. And finally when I quit by thinking of myself as a non-smoker. I was a non-doer of that activity. And I began to really identify with the non-smoker. And at the time, there was smoking in restaurants. You could go to the smoking or non-smoking section. There was smoking on airplanes. You could be in the smoking or the non-smoking section. Well, if you were a non-smoker, you could you could sit in the front of the plane. You know, the smokers all had to go to the back. I mean, can you imagine? You know, when you think about it, you're in that tin can
Smoking.
I'm sitting in the front of the plane, man. To identify yourself as a non-doer of that activity, you're less likely to pick it up again. So this is how we begin to break the habits that we have. We have to be mindful enough to hear ourselves speaking in unhelpful ways, and to watch ourselves carrying out the action and what's arising in our mind. Because first there's thought, and then there's words and deeds. To catch it at the thought level before we jump in to doing some harmful action. Because in fact, we're harming ourselves every time. We're harming ourselves. Which is why it's really important every day, because karma increases, it's important every day to take a look. When you wake up in the morning, you're grateful for having a day to be able to practice, and you just juice yourself up with as much love as you can to try to live a day of joy and share that joy with others. And then you go through your day and you watch yourself trip up from time to time. And you remember that. And you think to yourself, I regret doing that. So when you go to bed at night, when you come to the end of your day, you take a look at your day. Okay, how did I do? And then you think, okay, I made a few mistakes. But by recognizing the mistake, and this would be accepting that I'm not perfect, I did make this mistake. I accept that I made this mistake. And I regret it. Not because I'm a bad person, but because that mistake is a cause of suffering. Future suffering for myself and suffering for whomever was involved in it. So I have regret. That's the first of the 4 opponent powers. Regret. I regret that I did that. We really have to think, it's not I'm guilty. I'm guilty. Or I'm shameful. But we accept, I did the action, and I regret that I did it. And now I'm going to take refuge. That's the second of the 4 opponent powers. I take refuge. I take refuge in my spiritual practice. I take refuge in the 10 virtues as opposed to the 10 non-virtues. And I take refuge in my teacher. Please, help me. We have regret. We take refuge. And then we have a remedy. We create a remedy. There are many remedies, one of which is to go to the person and confess and ask for forgiveness. Whatever you have done, you ask for forgiveness. Sometimes you can't go. You can't say that you're sorry and ask for forgiveness for a variety of reasons. So you come up with another method. You can do, if you've harmed someone by killing, you can go liberate animals. You can go to the pet store and buy some fishing worms and go put them in your garden.
Oh.
So you can be creative with that one if you've harmed. And you can do that, you can save beings for any of your non-virtues. That can be a remedy. You can recite mantras. You can recite prayers. You can read Dharma texts. Anything that is something that's going to add more virtue to your mind. Something that's going to put a positive imprint on your mind. And then you make a resolve. I'm not going to do that again. And I have heard 2 different ways this is presented. One is to say, and I heard His Holiness the Dalai Lama say, to make a firm resolve never to do it again. Even though it's something that you have a great deal of difficulty with, that it is a habit of your mind to do it again and again. And so then you're going to do it again, and now you've made 2 mistakes. You've promised you wouldn't do it again, and there you did it again. So you did the bad deed, and you said you wouldn't, so you lied as well. But what His Holiness said was that the kind of resolve that you make by saying, I'm never going to do that again, it's like it puts up a red flag. It makes it easier for you to recognize it and to try to stay away from it from now until forever. Whereas if you're someone who does a lot of exaggerating, and you say, okay, or you judge, let's say you're a judger, always judging people, or you've got a lot of pride, whatever your thing is that's really hard for you to overcome, and you say, okay, for the next 30 minutes, or for the next 2 minutes, as long as you know that you will, or as long as I'm sitting here with my eyes closed, I will not do that action. As long as I'm not speaking, I will not engage in harsh speech. Then you can hold that. You can do that. But as soon as the floodgates are open, as soon as you've given up that, as soon as the time has passed, then your guard's down and you go back into it. So I can see that is good logic there to say that, never to do it again. But also I have heard, don't make a pledge to do something for a longer period of time than you are able to actually carry it out. So you play with that. You see what works well for your own mind. And you have those 4 tools. It's the 4 R's. Regret, refuge, a remedy,
Remedy.
and a resolve.
I love the regret. I was ashamed of the regret that I felt all the time about all the things I ever did wrong, and I thought it was wimpy and weak to feel regret and that you're not supposed to regret. I'm so happy to learn that it's one of the steps.
Well, you regret, and when you regret, and then when you purify, now the final thing that you have to really know and you have to think about is, now think, I am purified of that. Lama Zopa Rinpoche says, then now believe in that. Believe in that. Because otherwise then you carry that around, that regret. You just keep carrying around that same regret. But you say, okay, I do regret that action. Now I'm going to be finished with it. I'm going to do these, and I'm going to make a strong resolve that I'm not going to do that anymore. And if you've done the action and you've purified it, and you're not doing it anymore, there's no point in holding on to all that regret or shame, or that's more, usually it's about shame. The kind of regret that we're talking about here is the kind of regret that when you and your 2 friends go to the restaurant and you all order the same dish and you finish eating, and while you're having your tea or your coffee, one friend starts to get violently ill. And then the other friend starts to get violently ill, and you realize that there's food poisoning happening here, and you've eaten the same thing, and you know it's coming soon to a theater near you.
Oh,
Yeah, so there's that kind of regret. Ooh, I wish I would have ordered something else.
not like my marriage didn't work out. Not like that.
Yeah, well, you know what? They do say karma runs out. You burn up that karma. You run that karma for relationships finishes if you don't nurture the relationship. It's very interesting to watch.
Interesting.
So thinking about that.
Well, that's good.
How do you have the karma to have a really delightful relationship, and you take it for granted.
That's my question. Last week we were speaking about romantic relationships. This person that I was dealing with, there's so many things I just didn't see. And I'm curious about the karma of the relationship. It looks and appears that amends have been made. And my concern is, how do you re-establish trust when that person doesn't feel safe with you anymore?
I think it's time, over a period of time, and consistency.
How do you nurture that?
I
And
guess
how do you apply wisdom and compassion, and how do you apply and all pervasive love of just accepting that person as much as they are? And I feel that inside, and what you told me just literally like blew the top off of my experience and hugely affected in a very, very positive way the experience with this person. So thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
And
Thank you for sharing that.
I
Yes.
just don't know how. I feel like I'm carrying around a little bit of shame, and that's presenting itself as being fearful of being authentically myself, because I can see, the misbehaviors or non-virtuous actions and thoughts and deeds. don't
I
know what
think
to do with that.
honesty, and actually sharing that fear, being able to have conversations with one another about your wishes, how you wish to be authentic, and how you have fear to express. Are you familiar with Marshall Rosenberg's nonviolent communication? Okay, so being able to together, wishing to grow that, express a wish to grow that love and to grow that, to keep the relationship, to nurture the relationship. And what do they want? What do they see as a way forward? And I think it's really a matter of authentic communication. And when you do make a mistake, to just recognize it straight away and own it and make a remedy, a remedial action. We just have to accept that we're not perfect and admit that we're not perfect and not hide. We can't hide from ourselves either. We have to be authentic in a loving and kind way. And truly being able to speak to someone in the eyes. There's a very good method of growing trust, is to sit across from one another and to simply spend, you can set a timer, 5 minutes, and you just look at each other's face. And also, melting hugs are good. There's to just hold, to just hug, just give a hug, and also to tell the person regularly that you care about them, you care about their happiness. Thich Nhat Hanh, when I was in Arizona recently, I was in a bookstore and there was a book by him, and I was just browsing, so I just picked it up. And he was talking about communication, and he said, the greatest gift that you can give to someone else is to listen to them. And he said, the way to be with someone else is to simply say to them, dear one, I'm here for you. And then see what happens. See how, we have to be able to accept the criticism that can come to us as a result of our behavior. We have to be able to own it and say, yes, I accept, without beating ourselves up. That's the ticket.
Mm-hmm.
Not to beat ourselves up, but to accept, yes.
I have a question, but it's not in relation to,
Okay,
it's in relation to karma, but,
yeah.
Karma can ripen in this lifetime, next lifetime, or lifetimes after that, so how do you, I guess it's a two-part question, like how do you, I don't know which order I answered in. How do you get a karma to ripen in this lifetime? And then in relation to purification, right? Is it like you're planting seeds to be purified, or like how's that working, and how do you work with it to have the purification happen?
What happens with the purification is there are practices, right? There are specific practices like prostrations to the 35 Buddhas and Vajrasattva purification, right? There are these practices that we do. When you are doing purification practices, when you do it acknowledging that you made this mistake, you actually start. You can do these practices without having much effect. But if you really do recognize your propensity to gossip. Yes, and you recognize that, and you really want to be free of that. When you are doing these practices, whatever remedy you've chosen, to actually experience being free of that, it's actually changing your mind. In the moment, it's changing your mind.
So like being the non-smoker?
Exactly. It is like that, because you are now transforming who you think you are. And then when you are about to gossip again and you hear yourself gossiping, you recognize that's not who you really are. And you're not going to do that. You're going to disengage in that behavior. Purification works because the mind is empty. So you don't you just stop creating the cause to do that. It's like I told you about the story about the football coach. You know, you just stop putting that player in the game and he stops coming. The things that arise in your mind are not self-existent. They're coming because you've entertained them.
Mm-hmm.
And you stop entertaining them and they stop coming to the party. And then as far as getting seeds to ripen in this lifetime, you can just keep planting them. You just keep doing them as much as possible. And maybe they won't, you know, maybe there's way too much going on there that needs to be purified in order to have the seeds ripen that you want in this lifetime. But that's okay. You know, we just be content and be happy with what we have, because we certainly have enough.
Mm.
So we have an attitude that no matter how many lifetimes it takes, I want to free all beings. And that's a daunting task. But when you don't have any grasping onto a self-existent me or a self-existent other, then there is no problem coming back and helping sentient beings. There's no attachment to wanting my pleasure, wanting my good thing. Because how can I give it to you? It's the wanting for myself that causes me suffering. And I try to give it to you. I might not be able to give it to you. You might not be receptive to receive it. But as much as possible, we try to give what we want and give it to others, and then it comes back like a boomerang.
Mm.
Yeah. It's, yes.
In the book, Power versus Force, the author discusses the hierarchy of human emotions and behaviors from the very base level of, hate, envy, lust, jealousy, to the mid-levels of, compassion, love, to the very highest level, of course, enlightenment. He argues that in our incarnation today that we're living, that it's very difficult to move up. In other words, a Charles Manson is not going to go to Mother Teresa in a lifetime. And Mother Teresa will not become a Buddha in a life. Will not go through that transformation and growth. What are your thoughts about that transformational growth of moving towards enlightenment over a period of one incarnation or 1,000 incarnations?
Right. Well, first of all, we don't know where we are on the path. We don't know how close. The fact that we're all here in this room on studying this path and is an indication that we've done it before. And just how much purification we need to do, it's not 100%, can't say. But there are many stories of people who did very bad deeds in that lifetime. Milarepa is one who killed his family, killed a lot of people in his family, and went on to reach enlightenment in that lifetime. It is possible. He was quite an ascetic in order to do that, to say the very least. It is possible to purify all of your negative karma in one lifetime. As a matter of fact, it is said that you can actually reach enlightenment in one lifetime through the tantric path in one lifetime. Or you can do it over several lifetimes. I think it's a matter of, it is true that if you have a lot of negative karma to work out, it is more difficult. But also, you can have a lot of subtle negative karma, not gross, but subtle, that is so pervasive, it's very difficult to get rid of it. So we have to be just totally aware of what's arising. Because the mind is a stream, right? And what's popping up in our mind is seeds that we've planted before, thoughts, emotions. Those negative actions that we've done before, they appear again and again. They keep coming up. But we don't have to entertain them. When you sit in meditation, you see that thoughts have no essence. They need energy to survive. And we grasp them and grow them into a story and make them concrete, make them real. And we don't have any control over what's arising in our mind. That's sobering.
When I was married, we raised cows, and we butchered cows, and the killers would come, and my children would watch, and we made carnitas and pigs and all that. And after my divorce, I had problems with my health and my colon, and I was determined that I was going to be healthy, and I went to Ayurveda, studying Ayurveda and practicing it, and it was really hard because I really like cheeseburgers with bacon. And then just the other day, and I would say, no, I got to keep these mung beans and going, and the cumin rice, and I got to do this, and I got to make sure I eat on time, and I eat in a special place, and I give thanks, even though it wasn't natural to me, and it was like very stressful to make myself eat on time and stuff. But just the other day, I got a Burger King commercial. One of those flyers that give you all the coupons, and I used to save them. And I just looked at it, and it looked like junk to me.
Yeah, it's interesting how the mind changes, isn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it changed.
Yes.
How do you deal with the stories, the thoughts that come through? You can see them pop and arise. You can just watch them travel through.
Mm-hmm.
What about the ones that the mind loves so much as they're real? And that I find those ones and they hurt, like just even the story attached to the thought that arises, and it goes down and travels down that path, and it hurts.
Mhm.
How do you get rid of them?
Stop entertaining them.
Okay.
Have a happy thought.
It's
If you can say, as Lama Zopa Rinpoche says, merely labeled by my mind. This is arising and it's merely labeled by my mind. Or this is arising and it's just an illusion, it's a dream. This is my dream story.
Will they recede? Will they be like the football players that no longer come because they're not being entertained? Because they're the one I'm thinking of. There's 5 of them I can think right off the top of my head. I'm just like my cringe inside with grief and just anger and all of these really
So
negative
the other
emotions
way to
attached
do it is to take a look at each one. Look deeply at it. See how you created the cause for this suffering mind to arise. And then deal with each one individually to purify it.
I
to-
feel shame.
Because you did something
I did
that you-
something that caused
that caused the suffering. You
Mhm.
did that.
Mhm.
Okay, so that's what we're saying is it's not about shame. It's about acceptance. You just look at, you accept. Okay, yes, I did that, but actually I didn't do that. The one who did it doesn't even exist anymore.
Yeah,
I'm not the same person I was when I did that.
sure.
So we have to really let go of these things
Mm.
and not see ourselves as concrete baggage carrying around all of these negative
Mhm.
parts.
Self-forgiveness.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, self-forgiveness. Yeah, right. Thank you. That's true. That's big. Oh, goodness. My, how time flies when we're having fun. Any other burning questions? Because, yes, dear.
What's a melting hug?
Oh, a melting hug. Come here, Ryan. A melting hug is as close as possible, and you just hold, and you just melt.
Lucky.
Just keep going.
That's calming
You-
to watch.
You just give your love, to one another, to one another. When you grow in a relationship, when you grow your love for the other, you get double back. You just always looking out for the other. And it changes your relationship completely. Changes it completely. Instead of wanting from the other, you're wanting to give. Wanting to give. It's really cool. Yeah. Good. Yes.
I was sitting the other day, and I was not in meditation, just sitting around, and I
Not gossiping.
I was looking at something like a towel or something like that, right? And I was like some part of me felt like, because all these like wisdom teachings and stuff that we've gotten and we've been getting, and it's like I really feel like like I'm labeling this, and what's really there, like what's really there, like if it's not truly there, if my mind is like doing this in a way, I was like, what's the purpose of even labeling, like
It's labeling it on a base to be used. It has a function.
yeah, like without, I don't know, it was just like this, you could feel it rippling out of like, what is the purpose of like the function of like,
It's a
why
common,
is this-
it's a convention. It is conventional reality. If you look up convention, it simply means it's something that we all agree on. We just agree this is a cup. That's all. It's conventional, based on the fact that there's parts that have come together and we've labeled it cup. And it's convention, it helps us to function.
Communicate.
It's good to ask those questions. It's good to say merely labeled by my mind, because it's merely labeled by your mind. For someone else, that could be something that they're going to wear. It's a skirt that they're putting a little belt around, and you're labeling it a towel.
I mean, what are the higher schools like?
We're not going to go there now. It's 9 o'clock.
Okay.
Wow, it has flown.
We're going to chant the 2 dedication prayers. By thinking first that just coming together to talk about Dharma plants such incredible good seeds in your heart, so that you really are moving toward an enlightened state. It's such a blessing. It's such an amazing blessing. Rejoice in that. Just be so glad that you have the opportunity to be surrounded by people who are on the path, people who are in love. And that's a beautiful thing. And it's rare. And it's fabulous. And don't ever take it for granted. So we put it in the merit bank by chanting of the dedication prayer. By merit of this virtue, may I become Buddha and lead all beings, everyone, into that enlightened state. May the precious Bodhi mind, not yet born, arise and grow, and may that born not decline, but increase more and more. And let's also dedicate that all of our spiritual guides who have shown us this good road live long and fruitful lives, and that the vast reign of Dharma may shine on all sentient beings. And that we might quicker than quick, reach a state of peerless enlightenment. And I'd like to dedicate specifically to my good friend Anila Ann McNeil, who passed away. May she have a fortunate rebirth, be in the Pure Lands. And anything that you would like to specifically dedicate, think about, dedicate the positive energy to that result. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Hmm.